But now he's competing in Legacy?
I believe he also
What's going
won.
on?
Didn't he win an IQ as well? That
Sure.
got the ball
Yeah,
rolling.
I guess that, that did kind of uncork it, as it
Yeah.
were.
Yeah, so Brad, we saw him earlier on. He is playing Esper Deathblade. Now, this is the deck that has really been picking up in popularity over the past, I'd say, month to 2 months, I think. Of course, Todd Anderson wins with it a couple weeks ago in Baltimore, and then last week in Columbus. And it's doing pretty good work for a lot of the players here today. So Matthew Bevenour is on Ad Nauseam Tendrils, and he is going to get things started with a Ponder.
Yeah, Brad, in discussing his decision to go for Esper Deathblade this week, he said, I watched Todd play it in Columbus, watched him win the whole tournament, and he was like, Todd was just making mistake after mistake. The deck seems so easy. Had to switch over. And, lo and behold, here he is.
Todd's dead
and Brad's
and
making it look easy while Todd watches from the rail.
Yeah. So, Ponder finished resolving. Brad's going to play a Flooded Strand and crack it. And he may have the turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic.
Seems likely.
And there it is. Mystic going to fetch Batter Skull or Jite, and it looks like Jite is the choice here for Brad.
Brad, a little unsure as to what his opponent's on. He checked to see if Stoneforge Mystic resolves. That implies he does not actually know that Matthew is playing a Storm or even a combo deck at this juncture. Although, generally in Legacy, most of the combo decks are the decks playing Ponder. But, there are some Stoneblade lists that run, like a Singleton Ponder, things like that. It's even shown up in Rug, etc.
There's also bug variants of Delver,
right,
so he could be thinking that might be something going on here with the turn 1 Ponder, but we'll see how much more information Matthew gives away this turn. Looks like he's going to cast something here. It's going to be a Brainstorm, so 2 library manipulation spells may be giving a little more information to Brad here. And most aggressive decks don't tend to be trying to sculpt their hand this much early, even decks like Bug Delver.
Yeah, it's tough to know exactly what's going through Brad's head here, but he'll certainly need to put the picture together quickly, especially in order to maximize his own brainstorms and the like.
So a Bloodstained Mire comes down for Matthew, and he's going to crack that immediately. Fetches up a second copy of Underground Sea. So at this point, Brad probably aware that this is not Bug Delver. The fact that no green source has shown up.
Yeah,
this
very,
is something
very few decks
blue-black.
fetch 2 Underground Seas up. He's probably kind of feeling that combo vibe showing up now.
Matthew's going to cast another spell this turn. He has another Ponder, and I think that's what we're going to see here. Or Cabal Therapy, okay. He looks like he made that decision just at the last second as well. So Cabal Therapy, Brad says, all right. That resolved. I assume Matthew's going to go ahead and name Jite.
I mean, probably not, because it's not a card that's important to him. I was
I
about
was
to
gonna
say,
go ahead
Forcible or
and
Brainstormer are the most likely names to pin Brad with, and Forcible is probably the most likely, as he is, a combo deck, and that's. He knows most Esper Deathblade lists actually don't have a lot of disruption in the main deck. If you look at Brad's list, he has 3 Force of Will, 3 Thoughtseize, and a Singleton Vendilion Click alongside I guess 2 Snapcaster Mages to go with the Thoughtseizes, and that's basically all he can do to affect the Ant deck, at least in game 1. So those are the spells Matthew's going to target, and he knows he's safe from a Thoughtseize. He knows he doesn't need to worry about the Snapcaster Mage for that same reason. So Force of Will just makes sense.
So Geist of St. Traft comes down for Brad on his turn. He passes back, and now Matthew's going to cast that other copy of Ponder. I figured maybe going for the surefire hit was what Matthew was going for in the Jite, but yeah, it definitely makes a lot more sense to go with the Force of Will, considering what he's playing.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky when you're playing a combo deck, because some of your normal logic with Cabal Therapy certainly reverses itself. Most people, they focus on trying to get a hit with Cabal Therapy, whereas the combo deck, if you get a miss naming something like Force of Will, well, that's way better than a hit. Your opponent doesn't have any Force of Wills.
Either way, they're out of Force of Wills, right?
Yeah.
So the Ponder now resolved. Matthew going to draw. It's a Shuffle Ponder, and he gets a Burning Wish as his random card.
Well, he's got some potential now.
Yeah, I know he's got at least a Ritual in hand. He's got a Gemstone Mine there.
I've seen a Lotus Petal. I know he has a Burning Wish. You mentioned, I believe, Rite of Flame is the ritual he has. It looks like some more lands, which are a little blank, and he has a Singleton Silence.
I think he's actually got Dark Ritual as well.
Does he?
Isn't that a Dark Ritual?
Yep,
far
I
left?
believe that's a Tempest or a Dark Ritual,
Yeah.
and I don't see a Rite of Flame. It looks like I may have misseen that one, actually. And that would be accurate because yeah, there's Rite of. He does have Rite of Flames. Okay.
Okay.
Still
Yeah,
checking.
4
He
of
is on.
So Brad's turn. He's got the Stoneforge Mystic and the Geist of St. Traft on board. He's going to use his Wasteland to get rid of one of the Underground Seas on the other side of the table, and now Geist of St. Traft is going to crash in alongside an Angel for 6.
Yeah, I'm not sure I like that Wasteland C compared to Gemstone Mine. Brad probably. I don't know. The Gemstone Mine tends to me to signal, my opponent's playing the version with red. Basically, they have access to, Silence, Burning Wish, those kind of things.
Right. Well, he drew a blue-red duel there, the Volcanic Island, so he's going to have access to red anyway. But I understand what you're saying. Maybe cut him off a certain color mana. So we're going to go with a Silence here. Matthew's going to try to either draw out any counter spells here or just go ahead and go off, which I believe is the more likely.
Right. And if Brad had hit the Gemstone Mine, Matthew would have to be trying to go off in this situation without a Silence.
Yeah.
And as we see, Brad has actually drawn a Force of Will, so that would be a very relevant thing.
So there you see Silence at the instant speed rare from M11. Your opponent can't cast spells this turn. And looks like that has resolved.
Yeah,
so
Brad's going to let it go because forcing it would just leave him with nothing anyway. He's like, well, at a minimum, I just want to see what you're going to do. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it's just a bunch of goblins. It's almost never a bunch of goblins, let's be honest, though.
It's going to be a bunch of rituals for the moment. We've got Dark Ritual, Lion's Eye Diamond. That's the 4th spell of the turn.
And that puts us, we're on a 5 black mana.
Yes. And
Go
there's
to
a
4
Burning
black
Wish.
mana for a Burning Wish.
Storm count is currently at 5. Brad at 19, so Matthew's going to have to get a lot of value.
Diminishing Returns.
Diminishing Returns, that's one we're going to have to show our... and it was printed actually in like 6th edition, I think, is the most recent printing of Diminishing Returns. There's the 6th edition version. 4 mana sorcery, each player, it's kind of like a time spiral in a way.
It is somewhat like that. Matthew cracking his LED with the Burning Wish on the stack before fetching up the Diminishing Returns. That's how he gets the blue mana, so he's going to be on 3 blue and 4 black, and then as he casts the Diminishing Returns, I imagine he's going down to 2 black and a single blue.
So each player shuffles his or her land and graveyard into his or her library. You remove the top 10 cards of your library from the game, and then each player draws up to 7 cards. So I guess that's player's choice, huh? If you just don't want to draw 7.
Yeah, if for whatever reason you're just not feeling it,
Yeah, then don't really feel like having cards in my hand.
Silence obviously works quite well with Diminishing Returns, as Matthew sort of cleared the way for Force Will, even though Brad did manage to draw one. But the Silence in this case is preventing Brad from drawing Force of Wills via Diminishing Returns and continuing to counter spells. One of the key interactions in the deck.
One thing Brad was able to do, although I don't know how relevant it's going to be, was to vial in that Batterskull. And, despite not being able to cast spells, that does not apply to the Stoneforge Mystic activated ability of putting a Batterskull into play, or putting a piece of equipment into play.
One of the difficult things about Brad's position here is that Matthew is on 12, and Brad has exactly 11 damage in play. So even if by some chance Matthew simply just fails to go off this turn, he doesn't die.
Brad's not playing Gut Shot, right?
No Gut Shots. We're fresh out of Gut Shot.
It's all right. And Stoneforge Mystic Batterskull, just going with the whole Zendikar Mirrodin standard, right? So Storm count, I believe, currently at 6 after that Diminishing Returns. And we're going to... Brad says, what's going on? Oh, yeah, the top 10.
Cards,
It's a card you don't see very often in these Storm lists. You don't see it always. So there's the top 10 cards being removed from the game due to that Diminishing Returns. And he's going to draw his 7. Brad has already got his 7 as well. And it is still Matthew's turn.
Brad looking at the cards, he wants to piece together as much as he can. This game is obviously going to Game 2 one way or another, and Brad's taking the time to collect all the information in front of him so that he can sideboard as optimally as possible.
Yeah. So 3 mana floating right now?
I believe he should have black, blue floating, yeah.
Okay.
Is he paying life for this taxing probe? That could wind up mattering. He does pay
Wow.
life.
Look
Brad,
at that.
that's one of the
7.
least impressive draw
Draw
sevens
sevens?
I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
That said, the 2 life for Brad would probably discard his entire hand if his opponent would take 2 damage, because that's the only way Brad can reasonably win this game, is his opponent taking some damage and then failing to kill him.
So probe and then another ritual, going to bring the storm count to 8. Another LED, that's 9.
Mm-hmm. So we believe he's on 5 mana and at 10. We're not sure about the life total confirmation yet, though.
There's the LED
Goes to
cracking
3
that.
mana, cracks it, goes back up to 6 mana. Infernal Tutor.
Yeah, and that should be the 10th.
Yeah, that should do the trick,
Yeah,
as they say.
Find the Tendrils of Agony, and the storm count will be 11, which will do 22.
That sounds right to me. I'll confess I didn't count the spells.
Yeah, I was counting the spells and not focusing as much on the mana.
Oh, then it worked out perfectly
Yeah,
for us.
we'll just keep doing that for this match. I'll cover the storm count, you cover the mana count, and that way we'll have it. At least from our perspective, we'll get it all right. So I think this is a. Brad says, "All right, tutor resolves. What are you
Show
doing?
me.
Yeah, show me
what
the."
you gonna do?
Okay, so
Going
we're
down
gonna go.
to 4 mana.
We're gonna go with a storm count of 12 then. So that is actually the 11th, and the spell that he searches for should be 12, and there it is, the Tendrils of Agony. Brad untaps and scoops him up.
Yep.
So Ad Nauseam Tendrils does what it's supposed to do, performs as expected, and clearing the Force of Will early, and then a silence is going to take game 1 for Matthew Bevenour with his Storm deck versus Brad Nelson and Esper Deathblade.
That game did wind up, it looks like, hinging on that Wasteland decision as well. As, it did let Matthew go off with the silence. Otherwise, he would have had to either wait a turn to try and draw another source, or perhaps engineer some more convoluted line using his LED. But instead, he was able to go off in almost elementary fashion, just just a walk in the park, do this one, do this one.
Right. Play that silence, and it's just like, well, I guess everything resolves. So
let's shift over to the sideboards, Brad. Obviously, a lot of dead cards in the main deck of Esper Deathblade. He's going to go ahead and be tossing out things like Swords to Plowshares, and I assume Abrupt Decay, even though you can use it to slightly disrupt LEDs. It's kind of mediocre in that role. Umezawa's Jitte, obviously not really where you want to be if you're squiring on turn 2. He'll be bringing in his 4th Force of Will, his 4th Thoughtseize, 2 Meddling Mages, 2 Fluster Storms, and he has the option to bring in Nihil Spellbombs and Notion Thief. Those are the interesting cards I'm not sure that he would bring in. I don't think that the Nihil Spellbombs are really worth it, but it's easy to be deceived. Many versions of Storm run Past in Flames, and I don't know how familiar Brad is with these matchups, so he might think, I should bring this into hedge. This deck, I believe, only boards one, right?
Yeah, just one in the board. Looking at Matthew's sideboard, got a lot of one-ofs as tutor targets, so generally not going to be bringing any of those in, but of the cards that are likely to actually be treated as sideboard cards, he's got 2 additional Cabal Therapies, which I imagine come in here definitely to deal with those sideboards. He's also got 2 copies of Xantid Swarm, which generally is for a similar sort of deal of these kinds of matchups. He's got a couple of Abrupt Decays, but since Brad is not playing, I imagine those Abrupt Decays are more for counterbalance top. So I don't think he necessarily wants those
things like
here.
Chalice, Counterbalance Top, or even little hate bears like Gaddock, Teague, and Thalia.
Sure.
Those are the typical Abrupt Decay targets. Nothing Brad has is so threatening. So in this matchup, it's mostly going to be Brad leaning on his Disruption and trying to present a quick clock backed by Geist, and Matthew just trying to weather the storm, so to speak.
Yeah. And bring in the storm, really. I think it's a matter of Matthew picking apart Brad's Disruption with cards like Cabal Therapy and Xantid Swarm. You saw the one of Cabal Therapy main deck there for Matthew doing some work in game 1. He's going to go up to 3 here. He's also got 2 copies of Duress and 4 copies of Gitaxian Probe to kind of see what's up. And that's what he's got as far as targeted discard, or at least information gatherers. Gitaxian Probe, obviously not a discard spell, but able to kind of see if the way is clear.
Yep. It is possible he'll wind up leaving one of the discard spells in the sideboard just to be able to Burning Wish for it. Sideboarded games tend to progress a little more slowly. than Game 1's, as both players' decks are more suited to the fight, and you're trying to get to a more perfect position. In Game 1, a lot of the times you just gotta kind of jam and hope they don't have it, as we saw there, basically. But in Games 2 and 3, you really want as many of your options open as possible. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was a play that Matthew decided to keep available to himself. As for which discard spell he leaves, that's an option.
Yeah.
Considering all the Jataxian probes in the main deck, I'd kind of feel like I want to switch a Duress to the board, keep all the Cabal therapies in the main, something like that.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. I'll take whatever Matthew does as probably what you want to do. He's played the deck well so far.
I just wanted to point out I really like the way he's actually written out his deck list. He's got everything kind of written in a certain category where he's got, Dark Ritual, Rite of Flame, Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal, Chrome Mox, all these mana producers all kind of listed consecutively. Then he's got his Ponders, his Brainstorms, and then Gitaxian Probe. And then he's got his, his ways to clear the way. He's got Silence, Duress, Cabal Therapy. And then he's got his tutors, Burning Wish, Infernal Tutor. And then he's got Ad Nauseam as a one-of by itself at the bottom. And, I think it's just nice to to see somebody write out the list. Very organized. You can kind of see.
Yeah, he even puts empty the worms in the creatures. Kudos to him.
Yeah, he did, actually.
Yeah, so it's not precisely correct, but we'll let it go.
So we've got a game happening now. We've got a Thoughtseize from Brad Nelson. Turn 1, going to show us a Silence, a Brainstorm, a Dark Ritual, a Rite of Flame, and a Duress.
What do you think he takes, Joey?
Yeah, I think maybe I want to. It's weird. It's like I kind of want to take the Duress to protect any other discard stuff, but I also take that Brainstorm to just keep him from. Yeah, there's the Brainstorm.
Yep, I agree with the Brainstorm choice from Brad. That hand doesn't actually do anything yet, and Brainstorm is one of the ways Matthew was planning to change that. So Brad, go ahead and gets rid of that. And really, when you're fighting against a Storm deck, your primary goal is going to be to just add turns to their clock, because your deck already takes X turns to win. Like Brad's not winning games before like turn 5, generally speaking. So he wants to make his opponent take that long as well, because that way the game ends in a window in which he could actually win.
Yeah. So the cards are known to Brad, at least. Except for the draw step this turn, which I believe may have been a Gitaxian Probe.
It was. And Matthew holds off, wants to try and find a Cabal Therapy or a Storm turn to make better use of the Gitaxian Probe. Nothing that he would draw this turn would really change any of his plays. It would be even kind of questionable whether he would fetch Ponder if he happened to probe into a Ponder, but either way, he's going to just hold off for now.
Trying to take a look at Brad's hand. It looks like a Batterskull in there.
I believe I see Batterskull, Meddling Mage, and some other cards. I think a Snapcaster Mage between them. I'm not sure what he has on the far left there, though, but he does certainly have a fetch land, which he'll correct now. I believe he was mostly considering what he should name with that Meddling Mage. He has the advantage of a Thoughtseize, so he can certainly slow down his opponent's options.
There you see Chris Pikula. Meddling Mage.
Not the first time he's been on camera this
weekend. The first time he's been on camera repping the Azorius Guild, though. And we're going to find out what exactly was named off of that mage. There you see Meddling Mage, the original Meddling Mage, printed in Plane Shift way back in, 2001?
Name's Burning Wish. So not a card that we saw in Matthew's opening grip, but an integral card to the test strategy. So Brad decides to go ahead and knock that one out. And that's a pretty good name. It's about on par with Infernal Tutor, except he knows from looking at Matthew's hand that there is no Lion's Eye Diamond, which is the card that really powers up Infernal Tutor. So it's a slightly better call, I think, the Burning Wish, because it also lets Matt set up turns, as we discussed. The game's going to go a little longer. You might want access to some of his wish board. So Brad decides to use Meddling Mage and keep that out of the picture.
Yeah, that's going to be something that Matthew's going to have trouble dealing with, that Meddling Mage, unless he brought in those Abrupt Decays or even Chain of Vapor. But other than that, I don't think he's got much to deal with it. So you see Snapcaster, you see Batterskull, and what are those two in the middle?
Deathrite Shaman and a Fetch Land, I believe, are in the middle. A Scalding Tarn, I assume. I'm not 100% sure.
Tar Pit.
Okay, not a Fetch Land. But that's a reasonable clock. I imagine he'll go Tar Pit and flash in Snapcaster Mage for the beats, or perhaps he'll just play the Deathrite Shaman and plan to go Snapcaster Mage Thoughtseize. Depends maybe on what Matthew does here. If he draws another land, he would certainly, almost certainly, Snapcaster Mage Thoughtseize this turn.
Gonna swing in with Meddling Mage.
It's an attack for 2. We see the Tar Pit and the Deathrite Shaman. So that implies we're going to use our Snapcaster Mage 4 Thoughtseize on the next turn. Brad's draw for this turn was Flusterstorm, which is actually an excellent defensive weapon against Storm.
So now Matthew draws a Brainstorm to replace the one that was stolen by the Thoughtseize on turn 1 from Brad, and Matthew going to have an opportunity to make his hand a little better. Now he draws an Infernal Tutor, the second one now for his hand, and another Rite of Flame and a Gemstone Mine. He's going to put Silence and Duress back on top.
Yep, this might wind up coming back to bite him. He just saw Brad's hand, and there wasn't a counter there, and then Brad drew a counter. So in Matthew's mind, that Silence is now a dead card, as Brad doesn't have a counterspell capable of stopping him from going off.
And he doesn't need the Duress necessarily either. I think he's thinking that kind of along those same lines. There's no counters for me to take. But
the only thing he could theoretically, I mean, obviously he can't Duress Snapcaster Mage. So like a Cabal Therapy, he would probably keep in this spot in order to be able to just Cabal Therapy, naming Snapcaster Mage, and basically counter a Thoughtseize. But instead, Matthew is just going to have to shuffle away Duress and Silence, seemingly the 2 most useless cards in his hand. But as we know, times have changed, and the Silence and the Duress both actually were reasonably effective against Brad's position now.
Yeah, Matthew Bevenour up a game here against Brad Nelson in the final round of Swiss of the StarCityGames.com Legacy Open. Coming to you guys live from Philadelphia, I'm Joey Pasco in the booth with Glenn Jones, as Matthew Bevenour is going to tutor up an Underground City off of his Bloodstained Mire. And he, I believe, is going to have some sort of follow-up here. He's got 2 untapped lands. He's going to have to find a route to victory, because right now that Meddling Mage that is on Brad's side of the table has named Burning Wish, so that has shut off Matthew's access to his sideboard. Now, he could have changed things, expecting maybe some trouble out of Brad's sideboard. I don't know what he's seen all day. He may have seen Brad Nelson with a Meddling Mage in play earlier. He may have already been able to have that information, but looks like he wants to go off here. So
yeah, he's going for it. He knows Brad has only had a chance to draw 1 card, and he probably feels super safe. Little does he know, he probably couldn't be less safe. An Infernal Tutor is going to chain for, I believe, does he have another ritual left in his hand?
He's cast now 5 spells, including the Brainstorm, and it's Rite of Flame, Dark Ritual, and then the Infernal Tutor, and now another ritual. So that's 6 spells.
This is sort of a different way to get Hellbent. You Dark Ritual, then you cast Infernal Tutor for another Dark Ritual using the Dark Ritual still in your hand. Then you can play both Dark Rituals using the additional black mana left over from the first one, and then cast an Infernal Tutor Hellbent from your hand, and that appears to be exactly what Matthew is intending to do. So that will wind up putting him to 5 black mana, and then he casts an Infernal Tutor going down to 3, and he should have like 4 red mana floating as well. So it should be like 3 black, 4 red, I believe. It's possible I'm off by mana there, but that's what it feels like. And Brad, gonna Flusterstorm. Yep, 2 black, 3 red, confirmed. That is the correct count. And our spell count is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, conveniently enough, it's 7 copies plus the original Flusterstorm, if I'm not mistaken. That's exactly enough to successfully counter Infernal Tutor.
It was Brainstorm, Rite, Ritual, Tutor, Ritual, Tutor. That's 8, right?
Oh, 8 plus, 8 plus the Flusterstorm. So he even had an extra one to spare.
Yeah.
And obviously Snapcaster into Thoughtseize is not really that relevant anymore. Matthew is hellbent.
Yes.
And Brad takes a commanding lead. He drops a Deathrite Shaman, and his clock has suddenly increased. I imagine he'll just play Snapcaster Mage from his grip as a 2/1 during the end step here, or he can drain 2 with Deathrite Shaman. Those are his options.
I think I like the drain a little bit better. It's going to do 2 immediately. No, he's not going to do either one.
I think that he did remove Infernal Tutor. He just shortcut without tapping the
shortcut.
land.
Yep. Okay. Meddling Mage going to swing in for 2. Yeah, I like holding back the Snapcaster just in case. Snapcaster Flusterstorm.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it actually changed the clock or not. It would have dealt the same damage so far, and then he'd be knocking him to 5. So yeah, it looks like it would be basically the same. So in that case, no real sense into going ahead and playing the Snapcaster Mage because holding is functionally identical.
And he appears to, so he's activating both Deathrite Shamans, swinging in with Meddling Mage, and I think we're going to go to game 3 here. Brad Nelson evens it up versus Matt Bevenour.
A timely Flusterstorm following his opponent's Gitaxian Probe. If that's what it takes to win Player of the Year, I think I understand. I understand why I'm never going to win it.
So as Brad Nelson quickly
You see,
shuffles away from the booth.
Matthew can just, I can't believe he had that flusterstorm. She's like rereading the sheet where he wrote down the cards, I'm sure, like thinking over, like, man, that was so awful.
Just draw the flusterstorm, you know? You can't discard off the top of their deck. I mean, you can Fate Seal. Maybe he should be playing Jace, the Mind Sculptor. He can check the top of the library, too, you know?
Yeah, so when he brainstormed into that second Infernal Tutor, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so he actually had the option of losing one Storm for his combo, but keeping the Duress.
Right.
And that way, he just casts Duress off of one of those Dark Rituals, and he can peel a potentially drawn Flusterstorm. So it's possible that that was a better line. I'm not a Storm Master.
Right.
I would never claim such, but that's the only thing I really see that he could have potentially done differently. And it's a little bit more of a conservative line. Certainly drains for less, or if something goes wrong, you're getting less of your life back, or less goblins, or what have you.
Right.
But it is probably the safest option he has, even though he had just looked at the hand and didn't see anything threatening.
Yeah, it's a tough deck to play, again, because of the nature of the way the game is played. Discard spells seem very good. They give you so much information on often strip an important card out of your opponent's hand, but, leaving that, the top of the deck live, sometimes you're just going to run into a situation where they top deck, one of the cards that you don't want them to have. And that's why a card like Vendilion Click is so interesting, because it gives you that information, and you can take a card, but you're going to give them a free draw off of that. And sometimes, it's dangerous because you can actually take a card that may be moderately troublesome and give them something that you absolutely don't want them to have.
Yeah, for Matthew there, the decision basically just comes down to weighing one more spell for my Storm and a couple extra black mana against the option of taking a top deck counterspell. Or, he could have thrown back a Rite of Flame instead if he valued keeping black mana over red, which I imagine that's correct with Tess. I'm not sure, but...
So what do we know, and this is something that always comes up, and there's always this discussion, is this Ant or is this Tess? So TES is what? The Epic Storm.
Yes, this is a Tess deck. Ant tends to be black-blue, not run these other colors. The Silence is usually a giveaway for Tess in general. And Tess did reasonably well at a recent Legacy Open in DC. I believe it was, in fact, won by the creator of the archetype.
Yeah, that's right.
I believe it was Brian Elliott? No, not Elliott. That's the Hive Mind guy from Seattle. Bryant Cook, that's correct.
Yeah.
So there you go. We see Tess, again, doing reasonably well at a Legacy Open on the East Coast. These East Coast kids tend to like their Storm, in my experience. You see a little more Storm on the East Coast than you do on the West Coast.
I agree. I think, especially the Northeast, you've got the, I think it's a control and combo-oriented regional metagame, and I think I mentioned that yesterday. Northeast is very... very big on the control decks and the combo decks. So, but generally, there's a lot of overlap between these decks. Like as far as you mentioned, the colors. I mean, you saw game one, the win condition being Tendrils of Agony. You have the same ad nauseum and Tendrils in the list. So it seems like, I think to a lot of players, you look and you're trying to, why are these even different decks? They're just both Storm decks that win with Tendrils of Agony in most cases, or other Storm cards.
I tend to discuss them lumped together as Storm.
Right.
That's the name usually for. Generally, when people are of more specific Legacy lineage discussing Storm, they're referring to ad nauseum Tendrils or Ant. Those two names, in my experience, seem synonymous within the community. But I agree that Storm is perhaps just a more reasonable name to lump these decks underneath.
They're doing pretty much the same thing with almost all the same cards.
Yeah, there's certainly a core of 30 to 40 cards that are about the same. Or functionally the same.
Right. Yeah, you've seen different kinds of rituals that may be used, or but essentially, I'm going to.
The primary difference is really in how they sideboard, because obviously, Tess has to dedicate slots to Burning Wish. It has this whole engine,
right?
So it probably plays a little bit more robust in game ones, whereas Ant has access to actual sideboard options. Frequently, can splash green for things like Abrupt Decay and Carpet of Flowers, which have become pretty common.
Right. All right, so we look like we've got keeps on both sides of the table. And Matthew's going to lead us off with a Scalding Tarn. And a pass. Brad has a Marsh Flats and potentially a turn 1 discard spell.
Yeah, those are the spells he wants to keep, but it looks like he has Deathrite Shaman. The bottom of his deck looks stacked. 3 Forces of Ventilian Click. He's going to shuffle those up.
Yeah. Happy to get that shuffle effect. So Deathrite Shaman from Brad Nelson, the first spell of the game. And I believe
The Mighty
Matthew's
Midnight
turn.
Duelist.
The Mighty what?
Midnight Duelist.
I don't know that reference.
Midnight Duelist, a 1/2 for 1 from Avacyn Restored.
Oh, that's funny. That's
Deathrite Shaman is heir to the Midnight Duelist throne.
It's a limited card, isn't it?
Or crown.
That's why.
And ban, there we go, Midnight Duelist.
It's
Admittedly,
funny, I just
strictly
don't- I
superior to
remember it
Deathrite
now.
Shaman in certain matchups.
Yeah. Pro vampires.
Yeah,
You know?
primarily.
It's like I didn't even remember the
vampires
card
matchup.
name until like, you put that up. I recognized the artwork. I couldn't have told you the name of
Yeah.
it. If you like obscured the name, no idea.
On these long car rides to various SCG tournaments, you come up with a variety of funny ways to describe the cards that people
Okay.
play. Midnight Duelist is among them.
So there you see a City of Brass from Matthew to cast a Brainstorm. City of Brass recently reprinted in Modern Masters with updated artwork.
If you look, you see that he has just drawn a Ponder, but he actually had one before. He has also brought in Abrupt Decay. And notice, he didn't play that turn 1 Ponder when he led on Fetch Land. That implies, he had the Brainstorm. He's decided to hold it, wanted to get full value. And yeah, I like that choice. It's conservative, but you want to kind of preserve your cantrips, especially in matchups where you're facing against like Thoughtseize. If you spend turn 1 pondering, you can maybe keep a card in the top 2 that's good, but a lot of the time you'll just be drawing the good card, if assuming especially if there's 2 of them among the 3.
Yeah.
And your opponent can punish you with a Thoughtseize or a Duress or what have you.
Exactly.
And instead, this way, you slow roll. Like I said, we've discussed how these games are going to go a little bit slower. He's not necessarily just going to turn 2 every time. He actually has to expect that Brad will have some kind of resistance and play to that. In game 1, it's a very different story. He can just mostly try and turn 2 as much as he wants, or turn 3.
How many copies of Meddling Mage in Brad's board? Just 2?
Dose.
Okay, so Matthew clearly respecting the Meddling Mage here with that Abrupt Decay, I think, that he brought in.
Seems likely, and honestly, he probably just has some cards that aren't especially that valuable.
So he's going to Duress here, and we're going to see Brad's hand. We've got Misty Rainforest, Stoneforge Mystic. Is that Wasteland? Another Deathrite Shaman, a Flooded Strand, and a Snapcaster Mage. Does that look right to you?
Yeah, this looks like a loose keep for Brad. He's really relying pretty heavily on that Wasteland to slow Matthew down, or the threat of counter magic to keep Matthew from trying to go off. And now that Matthew has played a Duress, that jig's up. Brad can no longer make him fear counter magic. He's just going to have to waste him and hope that he perhaps peels again, which he has failed to do.
So a Lion's Eye Diamond from Matthew and passes back to Brad. Brad has that Wasteland at the ready. He's going to go ahead and use it on the City of Brass.
And see, Brad learned from his game 1 lesson.
Yeah.
He destroyed the Underground Sea instead of a Gemstone Mine there. Here he destroys the City of Brass instead of the Underground Sea, preventing his opponent from having access to these Silence or Rite of Flames or what have you that actually got him the first time around. And then he plays Stoneforge Mystic, try and get a clock going.
Yeah, immediately removing that City of Brass. Not too relevant, but he's using it for mana, so it was a target. So the City of Brass is now exiled. Stoneforge Mystic on the table.
It looks like Matthew's going to probably... I'd call him a favorite at this point in the game. He has his LED resolved. He went ahead and played it while he knew Brad didn't have counter magic. Didn't want to walk into a situation like last game. And he has a hand filled to the gills with spells.
Yeah, you can see he's got Rite of Flame, he's got Ad Nauseam, he's got Cabal Therapy, he's got Ponder, which he's going to cast here. And he draws into Silence, Dark Ritual, and another LED.
That's I'm going to go ahead and call that one a keep. I think we're going to
I
leave
think
that Ponder.
Not going to shuffle with that Ponder.
I imagine his options are, draw the LED and play it immediately, or draw the LED and not play it immediately, and keep the Ritual on top either way. I'm pretty sure that's what he does. And
he does draw the LED. He's going to play a Bloodstained Mire.
Probably not playing the LED is my guess. Or does he?
Looks like he's thinking about it.
I think I like holding it. Yeah. He's already got one in play. So he's guaranteed himself access to 1 LED. 2 is usually just gravy, really. And it would expose him to random things Brad could have, like Maelstrom Pulse or Detention Sphere, to just suddenly be really awkward.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really have any need to do that.
Also,
it's
just
highly unlikely.
Another card for the Storm Count.
Sure.
Free addition to that Storm Count, which can actually be relevant. depending on the situation. So Brad's turn now. With a Deathrite Shaman and a Stoneforge Mystic in play, he's going to play and crack a Misty Rainforest to find a Tundra.
Mm-hmm. I think you can really feel the pressure from Brad's side of the table here. He knows that he is in a tight spot and that he could very easily die on the next turn. So he's just going to present this Geist, attack for 1, make as much of a clock as he can. He's really hoping Matthew just bricks for 1 more turn and that he then draws a piece of disruption. That's all he can actually hope for. He was talking there for a moment. I'm sure it was something to the amount of like, please don't kill me.
Right. So on Matthew's turn, after getting hit by a Squire, the Stoneforge Mystic.
Team 1-2. That's what we should change the name of Esper Deathblade to.
Yeah, I like it.
That's a way better name. Team Midnight Duelist. Midnight Duelist, pretty much a strict upgrade to Squire, sadly. It's not even vulnerable to Spell Snare. I don't know what they were thinking with that kind of power creep.
Rite of Flame from Matthew. First spell of the turn. I'm going to see Dark Ritual.
Yeah, it's 2 red, 3 black.
Sure.
Brad's, F6 functionally here.
We know that. Matthew doesn't necessarily.
Well, he didn't have the Geist when he got duressed, so Matthew probably feels very safe.
Yeah.
And ad nauseum cracking the LEDs in reply. I imagine like 1 for black for sure at a minimum. Maybe he keeps the other one. Maybe he cracks it for another color.
So he's cast now ritual LED ad nauseum.
Mm-hmm. It's 4. And he does. It looks like he is keeping the 1 LED. All right, so he's just on 3 black mana probably.
All right, ad nauseum finds Abrupt Decay.
It's either 3 black or 3 red. To be fair, it's possible. He's holding for a Burning Wish. It is 3 black. We've got that confirmed.
All right, so
this looks grim for Bradley. That's a lot of spells. They're all cheap. They're all good.
Yeah, tons of rituals, library manipulation. He's got a duress in there. He's got a attack team probe in there.
That'll do it.
He's got a Burning Wish. So
there's more than enough mana in that pile to pay for itself, and the Burning Wish can go grab a Tendrils, and he's already got an LED in play, so that should basically do the trick. He's double checking to make sure this will actually generate enough spells to kill Bradley, but it certainly will at a minimum. He's got access to the Probe, the Ritual, the Petal, the Chrome Mox, the Rite of Flame after he cracks. Or actually, I guess he can't crack the LED, so he'll have to Petal for red, but that still works.
Yeah, he's with Brad having 0 disruption. I think it's pretty safe to say that Matthew's got this.
Yep.
3 black floating right now.
He does go ahead and double check the math to make sure that it is the correct storm count, which is a wise thing to do just as a general rule.
And there's a storm count of 5, a Gataxian Probe. It's going to show him, just to be sure, nothing there that is going to be relevant this particular turn. And that's as good as a silence.
Had he not played a land? I thought he started the turn perhaps by fetching. I can't recall.
He did start by fetching, but it was a land
he had
in play. Yep,
okay.
It was a Bloodstained Mire. So there's a storm count of 6, and now 7, the Petal, and then the Rite of Flame.
Well, in that case, this is all over except for the cooking.
And I think he's about to get the cooking going. He's going to cast Chrome Mox. He's actually going to exile or imprint the Brainstorm, so he's got blue mana there. He's going to cast a Dark Ritual. We've got a storm count of 9. And a Burning Wish makes it 10.
And LED for
he's going to find the tutor.
Response.
So that should be 11.
And note there that he had sided out an Infernal Tutor. As we noted, he might side out some of the cards in the main deck to be able to Burning Wish for them.
Yep.
Siding out Infernal Tutor is perhaps one of the ways he decides to protect against Surgical Extraction. A very reasonable card to expect from an opponent playing Underground Sea and Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah.
Brad's entering the scoop phase.
Yeah. And Matthew says, wait, let me show you this. Hold on. Let me show you what this deck can do. Brad's trying to extend a hand. And Matthew Bevenour takes down Brad Nelson in 2-1 here in the final round of Swiss of the StarCityGames.com Legacy Open, live from Philadelphia. And yeah, that was. I was gonna say that was a close one, but Brad really didn't like that. I think that you called it a lose.